Have you ever walked into a place that feels alive? A place where whispers follow you, shadows move on their own, and the children you see might not be alive at all? Tonight, I'm taking you inside the abandoned St. Augustine boarding school in Hollow Creek. A school burned decades ago, but the fire never really ended. The town of Hollow Creek was small, forgotten by most maps, surrounded by thick pine forests and damp marshes that locals swore swallowed sound itself. Growing up, I had always heard whispers about the old St. Augustine boarding school at the edge of the forest. It had been shut down in the late 70s after a fire took the lives of several children. Rumors claimed that their spirits never left. I never believed in ghosts, until last month, when my cousin Leo insisted we explore the ruins for his Urban Legends blog. At first, it sounded like fun. A quick adventure, maybe some creepy pictures, and then we'd laugh it off. But the moment we crossed through the rusted gates, something felt wrong. The air grew colder, unnaturally so, and the forest around us went eerily silent. No birds, no wind, just stillness. The massive brick building loomed ahead, its windows shattered like jagged teeth. The burnt roof sagged under decades of neglect. As we pushed the door open, it creaked loud enough to echo across the empty halls. A faint smell of smoke lingered, though the fire had been decades ago. Inside, the walls were covered in peeling paint, graffiti, and strange carvings we didn't understand. Leo laughed nervously, brushing it off as teenagers messing around. But then, from somewhere deep in the shadows, we heard it. The faint sound of children laughing. Leo froze. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I nodded, my throat dry. The laughter echoed again, but this time it stretched longer, turning distorted, as if the sound itself was being pulled apart. We aimed our flashlights down the hallway. Dust danced in the beams, but no one was there. The corridor stretched endlessly, lined with doors leading into old classrooms. Each one was burned, blackened, and littered with broken desks. On one wall, I noticed small handprints in soot, smeared like children had tried to escape. My stomach twisted. As we walked deeper, I noticed something odd. The floor was covered in a thin layer of ash, though there hadn't been a fire here for decades. Our footprints marked a clear trail behind us. But halfway down the hall, I realized something terrifying. There were other footprints. Small, bare, leading ahead of us. Leo followed them, excited, convinced someone else had snuck in before us. But the prints were fresh. Too fresh. We stopped at the end of the hall, where the footprints disappeared into a classroom. Inside, the walls were scorched black, and the ceiling sagged. Leo raised his camera to take a picture. Just then, a child's giggle came from the corner of the room. The flashlight flickered, and for a split second, I saw a small figure standing there. A boy, no older than 7, with hollow eyes reflecting the light. When the flashlight steadied, the corner was empty. Leo swore he saw it too, though he laughed nervously, claiming it was probably just smoke or a reflection. But I knew better. The boy's hollow eyes had locked onto me, and for that brief moment, I felt seen. We left the classroom quickly, but the hallway didn't feel the same. The air was thicker now, heavy, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Our flashlights struggled, beams weakening despite the fresh batteries we'd put in just hours ago. At the stairwell, we noticed something that made my heart stop. The ash footprints that had led us here, they were gone. Completely gone. The layer of ash was smooth, untouched, except for our prints. "Maybe the wind," Leo muttered, though his voice trembled. But there were no windows open. No breeze. We climbed the stairs, each step groaning under our weight. At the top, we entered what must have been the dormitory. Rows of rusted bed frames stretched out, many collapsed from the fire. Above one bed, carved deep into the wood, were words that chilled me. "We never left." I turned to Leo, but before I could speak, a sound rippled through the room. The slow, dragging shuffle of footsteps. Not from behind us. From between the rows of beds. We froze, beams darting. Then, in the center aisle, a shadow moved. Low, child-sized, but twisted, its arms unnaturally long. It crawled across the floor, then rose slowly to stand. And it wasn't alone. From every corner, more shadows began to emerge. The shadows crept closer, forming small shapes. Children, but wrong. Their limbs bent at strange angles, their faces blurred like melted wax. As they circled us, the whispering began. Faint at first, then louder. "We never left. We never left. We never left. The chant echoed in the dorm, overlapping dozens of voices. Leo tried to record, but his camera glitched, screen warping with static. He cursed under his breath, fumbling with the buttons. One shadow stepped closer. Its head twitched sharply to the side, and in a single breath, its face cleared. It was the boy again, the hollow-eyed figure from the classroom. He looked straight at me, lips trembling, before speaking in a broken, burnt whisper. "Help us." The room fell silent. For a moment, my fear cracked, replaced by confusion. But then the other shadows surged forward, and the boy disappeared among them. The air dropped to freezing. Our breaths fogged in the beam of the flashlights. Suddenly, the dorm door slammed shut behind us with a deafening bang. We were trapped. The shadows moved faster now, darting between the beds. Some crawled across the ceiling, their melted faces peering down. One by one, our flashlights flickered and dimmed. Panic surged in my chest. Leo grabbed my arm. "Run," he shouted. But there was nowhere to go. The shadows were closing in, their whispers growing into screams. And then, every single bed frame shook violently, metal screeching. The sound was unbearable. We covered our ears as the shadows vanished in an instant. The dorm was empty, silent again. But carved into the wall beside us were fresh words, jagged and deep. "Not yet." We didn't stay in the dorm. The moment the whispers stopped, Leo yanked the door open, and we bolted into the hall. My chest was tight, every nerve screaming to leave, but Leo wasn't finished. "Basement," he panted. "That's where they kept the fire reports, the old records. We need proof." "Proof?" I wanted to scream. We already had proof. Whispers, shadows, a boy asking for help. But I followed him, because somehow leaving him behind felt worse. The basement stairs were hidden behind a rusted metal door. When we pushed it open, the stench hit us first, damp earth mixed with rot. The steps groaned under us, each one covered in dust and webs. The deeper we went, the colder it became. At the bottom, our flashlights swept across rows of crumbling shelves filled with charred books, melted toys, and broken furniture. The walls were blackened with smoke, but one spot stood out. A massive iron door, chained shut with bolts. Across it, painted in faded red, were words that looked disturbingly fresh. "Do not open." Leo, of course, wanted to open it. "If they locked it, that means there's something behind it," he whispered, excitement outweighing fear. I grabbed his arm. "Leo, don't. We shouldn't." Before I could finish, the chains rattled violently, as if something on the other side had heard us. We stumbled back, hearts pounding. Then, from behind the iron door, came a sound I'll never forget. The sound of children screaming. Not in play, in agony. The screams continued, muffled but urgent, rising and falling like dozens of voices trapped in eternal pain. My hands shook as I held the flashlight, its beam trembling across the chains. Leo's face was pale, but his obsession burned brighter. "We have to see. What if they're still in there?" "Still in there?" I hissed. "Leo, they died 40 years ago." But the screaming grew louder, the chains rattling harder, until one snapped loose and clattered to the ground. We froze, staring. The iron door creaked open just a hair, enough for a burst of heat to wash out. It was real, hot, choking, like standing too close to a furnace. I staggered back, coughing. My flashlight flickered again, and in that dim glow, I saw faces pressing against the crack. Burned, blistered, melted faces. Children, dozens of them, their mouths wide in endless screams. Leo raised his camera, but the moment he tried to film, the screen went black, static crackling through the air. He cursed, slamming the device against his palm. Then the screaming stopped. The silence was worse. Slowly, the iron door groaned wider. The chains fell away as if cut from the inside. And in that awful darkness, something began to step through. Not a child, not a person, a shape, tall, black, and burning from within, as if its skin was fire held back by ash. Its hollow eyes locked onto us, and in a voice that shook the walls, it whispered, "You let us out." Leo and I stumbled backward as the figure stepped fully into the basement. The heat it radiated was suffocating, waves of blistering air that made the walls sweat. The shelves around us blackened and curled as though the fire from decades ago had reignited. Behind the tall shadow, more shapes poured out of the iron room, smaller, faster. The children. Their burnt forms crawled across the walls and ceiling like insects, their screams piercing the silence. Leo's voice cracked. This is impossible. The tall figure leaned forward, its ash-cracked face inches from mine. For a moment, I swore I could see a human face beneath the charred surface. A man's face, twisted with rage. Then it spoke again, louder this time, the sound vibrating through my chest. We burned. Now you burn. The basement lights exploded overhead, showering sparks. I grabbed Leo's arm and dragged him toward the stairs. But the children gave chase, their tiny feet slapping against stone, voices shrieking in unison. We barely made it up the stairs. As we slammed the metal door shut, their hands clawed against the other side, scratching, banging, leaving scorched marks on the steel. The heat faded. Silence returned. Leo dropped to the floor, gasping, laughing hysterically. We have to go back, he muttered. We have to know what they want. But I wasn't sure they wanted anything, except to drag us into the fire with them. We didn't leave right away. The front doors of the school were jammed, as if the building itself refused to let us out. The halls twisted, darker than before, every turn leading us deeper instead of closer to escape. As we ran, I noticed something horrifying. Ash was falling from the ceiling. Not dust, not debris. Ash, fine and black, coating the floor as though the fire was still burning somewhere unseen. Footprints appeared in it. Small, bare, circling us. Leo swung his flashlight wildly, but there was nothing, no bodies, only prints. I clutched his sleeve, my voice shaking. They're still here. They're following us. We reached the old cafeteria, the stench of smoke thicker here. Tables lay overturned, trays melted into twisted lumps. On the far wall, written in soot, were new words. Stay with us. My stomach nodded. Leo, they don't want us to leave. Before he could respond, the doors slammed shut behind us, locking us inside. The ash thickened, swirling like a storm. Shapes moved in it. Children, dozens of them, their faces glowing faintly as if lit from within. One by one, they lifted their charred hands and pointed at us. The whispers started again, but this time it wasn't "we never left." It was worse. Join us. The ash storm swirled violently around us, and the children's faces grew sharper, more twisted, their eyes glowing like embers. The tallest figure, the one that had first come from the basement, loomed over us like a wall of heat and smoke. I could feel the fire crawling over my skin even though nothing touched me. My lungs burned as if I were breathing smoke. Leo screamed, waving his flashlight, but it was useless. The beam barely penetrated the swirling darkness. Run, I shouted, grabbing his arm. But the ash shifted, forming walls of black around us. Every door we tried slammed shut. The shadows moved faster, circling us, their whispers now screams that rattled my skull. Suddenly, the tallest figure spoke, its voice deep and crackling. You freed us. Now you belong to the fire. I felt a tug at my mind, like invisible hands pulling us toward the basement. Panic gripped me. There was only one chance. I grabbed an old extinguisher from a corner and sprayed blindly at the largest shape. The spray hit it, and for a moment, its form wavered. Leo and I ran, following instinct, diving through the halls and stairwells. The children's screams echoed behind us, fading slowly as if the building itself was swallowing them back into the shadows. We reached the front doors. I threw my weight against them, and they gave way. Fresh air hit us, cold and pure. The ash storm vanished. The school loomed silent, as if it had never moved. We didn't look back. We returned to Hollow Creek, shaken and covered in soot. Nobody believed our story, not the police, not our parents. The building was supposed to be abandoned, and the fire was long gone. But I knew the truth. We had touched something older, darker than fire, older than the forest itself. That night, I dreamed of the children constantly. Their hollow eyes, the whispers of "join us," replayed endlessly. Weeks later, I returned once to take photos for proof. The school looked untouched, serene even. But when I reviewed the pictures, one stood out. A single shadowy figure in the window, watching. Its eyes burned faintly. I never went back. And sometimes, late at night, I feel the ash under my feet in my own bedroom, as if the children are still walking toward me, waiting. The fire didn't end. It just waits. Thank you for listening to The Shadows of Hollow Creek. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more story time. Comment below which part scared you the most, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Remember, some shadows never leave. See you in the next story.